What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. Right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders like the founders of P90X, Tony Horton, Baby Einstein founder, Julie Clark, Atari founder, and many, many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. Today's episode, this is going to be a little bit different episode actually today. I had an amazing entrepreneur, and he actually invited me to interview him for his podcast, and it was so good. I said, can you please let me release this on mine? Today's episode is brought to you by Rise 25, which I co-founded with my business partner, John Corcoran. At Rise 25, we help B2B businesses connect to their Dream 100 clients and referral partners, and we help you run your podcast so it generates ROI. As people have listened, if you've listened to this before, podcasting is much more personal to me, and it was inspired by my grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor, and him and his brother were concentration camps in Nazi Germany, were the only members to survive. But his legacy lives on because the Holocaust Foundation did an interview with him, which you can watch on my About page. So yes, podcasting will help your business. It's been the best thing for my business and my life in general, but it helps you and your guests leave a legacy. So if you have questions, I believe any business should have a podcast. So if you have questions, you can email us support@rise25media.com, or learn more, go to rise25.com. John and I made a video, and we even left in the outtakes. So now check out today's episode.
Hey everybody, it's Ed O'Keefe here, your host of the Wake Up Minute and founder of Wake Up Foods, where you'll hear from the world's top experts, thought leaders in health, entrepreneurship, and mind-bending athletes of all ages to inspire you to be your best self every single day. I'm super excited because I have a good friend of mine, Dr. Jeremy Wise here, who's done thousands of interviews with successful health experts and leaders in entrepreneurship and CEOs. So today's one of those episodes where we're flipping the script, and he will be interviewing me. So I'm super excited because I love talking not only about what we do, but also about our mission, about whatever questions Jeremy's going to ask me. Now, before we get started, I want to tell you real quick, today's episode is brought to you by my company that I'm so proud of, Wake Up Foods. Let me tell you a little bit about this. Wake Up Foods was born out of necessity. My wife and I have 7 kids, and as many of you may or may not know, I'm the 12th of 13 kids. So the idea of having healthy, clean foods that also taste great was not even on our radar, was not an option growing up. And so I wanted something that was not only healthy for my family, but also for myself as an adult athlete who wants to live long, live well. But the fact is, it has to taste great, or else my kids wouldn't eat it, and I knew it wouldn't be something that we could make available to everybody. So I created a 100% plant-based, allergen-free food brand called Wake Up Foods. Our most popular product are the ready-to-eat waffles, and I have some here today that I'm going to be eating on the interview because I'm so proud of them. But anyhow, my family and I can't go a day without eating at least 4 of them personally. They're that good. We have chocolate maple blueberry, the original waffle, and then there's always a mystery waffle. Jeremy, I don't even know if you knew this.
I did not.
After people buy, we have a mystery waffle that is a mystery flavor. The only time you can purchase it is after you buy any of our other flavors, with only 9 or less ingredients, made with oats, chia, flax, date powder, pea protein. You're getting real fuel for the day, 0 crashes, 0 refined sugar or ingredients, and most importantly, for sustainability or staying on anything, it tastes unbelievable. I recruited a world-class chef, who I'll talk a little bit about today, Chef Eric, that is 100% plant-based, who is on a mission to help families and kids eat healthier. And I want to add, actually, and he's also an athlete. So he would do 100-mile bike races. So he built the nutrient profile to fit endurance athletes as well as actually any kind of athlete. But one of his big missions was that he has a child with a food allergy. So going plant-based is phenomenal. not only for you, but also for the planet. And by the way, let me just tell you this, because you don't have to be 100% plant-based to love Wake Up Waffles. I'm not 100% plant-based. We like to say we're plant-focused. But anyhow, because of all the food allergies and health issues, it was mandatory for us to create products free of gluten, soy, dairy, wheat, eggs. Trying to see if I'm missing anything. But anyhow, as a Wake Up Minute listener, I highly suggest you stop by our website at www.wakeupfoods.
It's 12 o'clock.
wakeupfoods.com.
That's time to eat a waffle.
Yeah, I know, right? And pick up a few cases of the waffles. My favorites, you ask? Well, I love the chocolate. I love the blueberry. And yes, the maple and the original, as well as the mystery flavor. I love them all. I can't get enough of any of them. So you can go to use the coupon code WAKEUP. That's Wake Up, WAKEUP, to save an extra 10% on your order today. We have 100%. You can't just eat one guarantee, which means if you are not totally obsessed after you buy it, you love it, we'll refund you. All I ask is that if you don't love it, share it with somebody that will. And that's it. Go to Wake Up Foods today. All right. So let's dive into this interview where I'm going to flip the script and I'm going to pass the microphone over to you, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me. And, I'm going to have you talk about the mission and why you created this. But you mentioned something in the beginning that about growing up and one of 13 kids and that this was not an option at that point. So what were the options? What was a morning like in the O'Keefe household with 13 kids running around?
Yeah, I mean, I was on the bottom side of it, first of all. So I was a 12th of 13. So kids running around is probably more in my mind, like when I think of my childhood, kids running around is a little more well characterized for like my existing life, right? Getting the kids out of the house today. I was in the lower end. So like my oldest siblings were already out of the house, even had their own families. I went to college with my niece, one of my best friends. But I mean, I think it was just really typical of a lot of other families from the perspective of, at least that I know. I mean, I live on the south side of Chicago. We're just like all families where you eat what your options are, which were, Lucky Charms, Cocoa Puffs, Trix. And that's what we knew. And frankly, that's actually what I would say most people know, right? But I would say from the perspective of a health, like we look at like the health education and IQ level. What I want to say is like, my dad was an electrician, right? Retired an electrician. A good work week was he worked 40 hours so that he had the opportunity to have overtime. Like if work was good when he had overtime and he got paid time and a half. And so that's kind of a lot of my brothers the same way. The hardworking man, blue collar mentality was my household. So the idea of what is healthy foods, what are allergen-free foods, by the way, weren't as important back then because of the pesticides that's, and the destruction of our soil, which is a different topic. We can talk about that later if you want. But, I think the way people stayed healthy and lost weight in our ecosystem or way of thinking was restriction of calories, were kind of fad diets, were eat less, is it fat free? Like that was more the mentality growing up, and the availability of anything like Whole Foods or any of those ideas of organic, gluten free. That
wasn't even in existence. Yeah, really.
It wasn't even really as necessary as it is today, for a whole host of reasons.
It wasn't popularized. Yeah.
Yeah. But also too, like if you've done if you read about like the destruction of the soil and utilizing, is it I always screw this word up, but it's like the key ingredient in Roundup. I mean, it's glyphosate or something like that. Dr. Zach Bush has really shown the spotlight on how it by using these chemicals on the soil of our crops and for our farms, it actually acted as a accelerant to gluten. And so, we human beings overall have been capable of evolving with, like say something like gluten to where we could adapt along with it. But then when you add these accelerants on it, now gluten's a much more powerful, I don't know if allergen, I guess you might just say, or, something that irritant inside the body, so that the amount of people probably, I think after like 1992, could have started before that. I don't want to talk too far over my skis because there's experts in this that are much more qualified than I am. But just to give everybody a 101 picture of it, now all of a sudden, the percentage of the population that has gluten intolerance, it just gets exacerbated, And I don't know if we took a left or right turn there, but none of those things were on our radar as kids. And then even as like a couple, man, I mean, like growing families, I think Noah and I probably represent the majority of typical households where we were both collegiate athletes. We had the best of intentions of, preparing and filling our pantry with better foods than we had as kids. And then, if you actually look at what's available, what's ready to eat, and who's winning that battle, and how quickly kids get introduced to sugars, the necessity to create product that tastes super good, as well as super nutritional and hopefully lifelong habits for everybody listening to this. It's really something that is born out of necessity. And, I think most families, the parent guilt thing is very, very real, and, when we were interviewing, when we were talking to Nola, like there's so many times where like, you're at a store, you're buying what's convenient and easy, and the guilt is there. So the first thing I want to say to everybody listening is, the number one way to stop, whether it's losing weight, whether it's being healthy, or you stop feeling guilty about things and just get proactive on things. And so Wake Up Foods was a byproduct of getting proactive instead of sitting there and trying to change habits, let's say,
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, anyone who's watching the video, if you want to hold up and describe what you have there, because here's the reality: you're competing against.
Jeremy's calling me on it. So like, he called me and I was literally getting done from working out. And I'm like, oh, I'm starving. Let me go heat up a waffle. And so I just heated up one of our chocolate waffles, put a little organic date syrup on it, and then just a little bit of banana. And, like each serving of the waffles gives you 10 grams of protein. It's made with rolled oats. So the carbohydrates do not spike the blood sugar, which is, people get really confused between refined carbohydrates like potato chips and a slew of other things that are bad for you versus ones that actually fuel you. It's made with chia, flax, and a lot of those fats not only have good protein, but they're massively nutritional. The nutritional benefits are super, super high, and the caloric intake is super, super low. And so if there's no blood sugar spikes, you're getting tons of nutritional value. It's easy to digest. Your energy stay up. It's balanced over a long period of time. We use date powder as the sweetener. And we use a little bit of organic cocoa, and then like for our organic maple sugar for those flavors. And then, but studies been shown that those date powder is great for people like diabetics, that there's no insulin spike. So they're not on this yo-yo. They don't have to worry about their blood sugar spiking. And then I love, adding a little bit of fruit on top of it or with it, or a lot of it, depends on how you like your stuff. Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff.
So hold it up for a second.
Himalayan pink salt is the other ingredient in here too. Yeah, it's just simple waffle. I mean, actually, let me just.
That's the chocolate one.
It's so much easier. Yeah. So this is it right here. So look.
I told you don't eat all of it so you can show it.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's just amazing. Like, I mean, we had people over this weekend. They're just like, this is way too good to be healthy. I'm like, well, I know.
I mean, the funny thing is when you're in the store, like you're not just competing against healthy foods. You're competing against, like, if your kids won't eat it, it doesn't matter how healthy it is.
Doesn't matter.
You know,
Doesn't matter. And I think like gluten-free or any of these allergen-free products, and then even like vegan products have always been stamped as they taste awful. Like, like even one of our neighbors said to us, it was great. She was like, actually her husband said to me, I told my wife to stop buying these gluten-free products because they taste awful. And so now with Wake Up Foods, they have a new alternative that tastes amazing and they like it. And, it's true.
So 7 kids. So I do want to have a conversation about, you mentioned Dr. Zach Bush and some of the other experts who you consider experts you follow, but talk about, a morning. What does that look like with 7 kids?
Well, I mean, let me just tell you this, first of all, before we even go into like what a morning looks like, because people might get bored, like of just even like Ed's sharing his routine.
I just want to be grateful that I don't have 7 kids and that I don't have the chaos
man,
get
out of here. So what I think what's amazing is I was so lucky to meet a wife that we grew up 4 blocks from each other, but we were in different parishes. Like on the south side of Chicago, you have parishes. You don't have I guess that's how, hey, what parish are you from? What parish are you from? And those are like different little towns. And so even though we're in Chicago, it's very neighborhood friendly. Amazing place to grow up. But we met each other like in college, right? Mm-hmm. And so we knew of each other because I was one of the first guys in the area to play volleyball and all that fun stuff. When volleyball wasn't super popular in the Midwest. And then we were friends, and then years later, we bumped into each other at a outdoor volleyball tournament, and I was like, "Hey, man!" Well, I didn't call her man, but I was like, "Hey, no, I'm moving up north," and next thing you know, we're next door neighbors. Next thing you know, the girl who I was dating dumped me. Next thing you know, we're hanging out all the time. Next thing you know. We're married and we started our family. And I think one of the things about that was we both wanted, like, she's one of 8, I'm one of 13. We both were like, let's keep going until we can't have anymore. We wanted a big family. And I think that's kind of like, hopefully that bleeds through the Wake Up Foods brand as we're very inclusive. Like our house, our backyard is filled with kids all the time. Our kitchen's filled with kids all the time. So I think culturally, I just kind of wanted to share a little more background versus just teaching people about our morning. Because I think it doesn't even scratch our surface, like both athletes. And I love doing hard things. I like still thinking that the best years are ahead of me instead of behind me. And hopefully we model that for our kids, right? And so coming full circle from a physical fitness perspective, from an adventure perspective, by still doing events, like I do Jesse Itsler's 29 Everstein events. I did Kokoro Camp a few years ago. There's a lot of things that I still want to do physically to be extremely challenging, so that we model those behavioral things for our kids. And then you go like, well, how are we doing on the food front? And so I think that's where we're trying to lead it as well. And most people, Jeremy, before I talk about kids, because I want to talk, most people I would think in life are just trying, like, where there's people that are hyper world-class oriented people trying to, again, I have tons of friends like this, right? I think these are some of my favorite people in the world. Like they're pro athletes or pro coaches, or they're wired slightly differently. And I say it in a good way. They're great for this brand. Wake Up Foods is great for them. Okay. But I would say most people, like if we step back and we take all the stuff away for a moment, most people are just trying to do a little bit better today than they did yesterday. Right. And they're trying to, they're like ducks, like that are trying to stay as cool out in front of people, but they're paddling super hard underneath that water. And so one of the common questions, to kind of go back all the way to the kids thing, and I could talk about that stuff in a moment, like high performance and how do we do that, and how do you, like, mental toughness, if you want to talk about that stuff. But I think the other thing is, like, one of the first questions I always get is, oh, you have 7 kids. well, I only have, and then insert the blank. And I always stop them right there. I was like, don't go there with that. Like, like I remember the hardest child was the first one, because you're trying to figure it all out. And then, you piles on, and I don't know, looking back, it kind of was like a hurricane, and just, some people say it's controlled chaos. I would say there was nothing controlled about it. It was totally chaotic, Yeah. So I don't know where you want to go from that.
Yeah. So, sort of what gave you the idea to start this company? I mean, because you probably had. I mean,
so just to give everybody some background. So I got my nursing degree, say 21 years ago. Came home, told my parents I don't want to be a nurse. No disrespect to nursing, but I didn't want a job. I'm like, I'm going to go be an entrepreneur. And really, for many people that are entrepreneurs, they'll recognize this. That meant I was going to be broke for the next 5 years. It really is. It really did. And I tried so many things. I thought I was going to I read all the books about goal setting and visualization. And they talk about, you tell God your plans and he laughs, or however you want to phrase that. But, sometimes ideas incubated, you're just, it's just a matter of timelines, right? And sticking with it. And so my first successful business was a dental marketing company. After about 9 years of doing that, I rolled into the health product space, which was the health supplement business. And then a few years ago, a food brand, I invested in a food brand that I really believe the tenets of the brand. And, for a lot of reasons, it went under. And it was one of my biggest lessons as somebody on the sidelines who was not able to, it was like I wasn't a founder, I wasn't the CEO, I was an investor. And, when you're an investor, in most cases, you don't have control. You lose control of that. So when that company went under, I really sat back and I was like, well, how am I going to handle this? Because this was something I thought, I really feel like the food system needs to get disrupted. You see the plant-based movement is strong right now. The agricultural movement is very, very strong. On both sides. I mean, there's a lot of people that really, 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 they can disagree about a lot of stuff, but one thing they can agree upon, whether you're a paleo person who really believes in sustainable regenerative farming with grass-fed animals, or you're hardcore vegan on the far right, you got the both sides there, right? That probably it'd be interesting to have both in the same room arguing. But what I like to try to think is where do we agree on things? And there's a lot of people fighting very, very hard to help farmers get their farms back to properly replenish our soil. And I know for people who've never even, this is so brand new to me, if you look at my whole lifeline, when I first learned about this, and you can check out Farmer's Footprint, I think it's .co or .us, but Dr. Zach Bush, go through that documentary. It's 20 minutes long. It'll really shift your entire thinking about why we need to restore our soil properly, give the farms back to the farmers, and let them give us more nutritional products, right? And they need to make more money. They need to make money. They can't be owned by a Monsanto or a Bayer that forces them to use chemicals that kills our crops. I didn't know anything about this. Now, if you take it a step further, so I just talked about the food system's broken, talked about agriculture a little bit, and then you talk about disease, right? And so those things start rolling into, there's a reason why in the 70s, I might be wrong a little bit on dates, so I'm giving full disclaimer on this. In the 70s, less than 4% of kids had chronic illnesses. However, right now, over 46% of children have chronic illnesses.
It's pretty strange.
It's crazy, right? And the only linkage back goes, I shouldn't say the only linkage. One of the key linkages that Dr. Zach Bush talks a lot about. He's not the only one, by the way. There's a lot of great leaders and thought leaders on these topics. But, it goes back to the chemicals that were put into our foods and into our things. So, you think you're having a great tomato, but you don't know it's filled with glyphosate. I practice this one here, but the Roundup, it kills everything. So there's no nutritional value in it, right? And then that directly goes into our gut, and that's one of the key, health centers of our entire body, if not the main health center of our body. So that all this stuff, man, makes me more and more passionate about this. I mean, I'm amazed. I didn't know any of this stuff. This is stuff that is like, you're trying to get 1% better, and then once you get your eyes open, I see why people have.
You go down this rabbit hole.
You do, because it really is better for society. It's better for people. It's better for you. Like, so, okay, hey, let's say you just want to be more plant focused. Great. The average person, the average American or North American person who's on the standard American diet gets less than 5% of their nutrients from actual whole food plants, right? Anything plant-based. Well, what if you just flip that to 80%? Do that for 7 days. Check out The Engine Diet by Ellenstein. I'm going to look it up while we're talking. Great guy. The Engine Diet. What an amazing. I mean, he was a firefighter that is transforming firefighters' lives because most firefighters. I work out with them all. They're all amazing guys. They bust each other's chops every single second they can. The Engine 2 Diet, right? By Rip Esselstyn. Yeah, amazing, right? Rip Esselstyn. I mean, check that out. Do something like that. Just do even half of that for 7 days and just see how you feel. You're going to have more energy. You're going to feel lighter. You're going to, probably sleep better, get your thyroid, your adrenals, all those things a little bit more, feeling a little bit better. I am rambling on a diet.
No, so who no, yeah. So the mission, you were talking about a little about the mission. So you saw that you were an investor, you didn't have control.
So the mission, so full disclosure, this started off as an entrepreneurial mission. Like, yeah, I believe in the tenets, believe in the direction, believe food needed to be disrupted. But now everything I just talked about there, like food, agricultural, disease, that just started compounding as we started developing product. I brought on Chef Eric Walnum, who is a private chef for a lot of well-known people. He's always been a private chef. And the timeline may escape me a little bit, but one of the key things he did is he did an optional course on that I think was like 6 months long, but it was just focused on plant foods. And he was an athlete. He still is an athlete. And so, he tried just going gluten-free he's a very good experimenter, a micro tester, or what do you call it? Like optimizer himself. And then, his daughter, one of his daughters had a dairy allergy so their whole family is allergen-free now, and he's 100% plant-based, but he really played a very, very vital role in the formulation, why we went allergen-free, and why we chose each ingredient. I mean, he could speak to those probably stronger.
What did he say?
He'll be on our podcast as well. Well, I think if you just start going down the, first of all, I think you need a chef that has the capability of building products that are that way, where a lot of guys just don't, right? They go for food. They seek out food scientists to build things out for them. Almond flour is a very common, isn't very, very common. Eggs is very common in a lot of baking of products. And we just decided to go the other way, and really serve an underserved market with something that we felt was very, very, tasted amazing.
How did you meet him?
Jesse Itsler. So many of you guys may know, like if you don't know who Jesse Itsler is, he's definitely on the podcast. So I think I'll have a few episodes with him in it, and I'll probably interview him every 6 months because he's always doing something amazing. But Jesse introduced me. Like when I told Jesse what I was doing, Jesse's a really good friend of mine. My wife and I go to their house with like 100 other people every summer for their Hell on the Hill charity event. I attend every event of his that he holds, by the way. Like he's got bylr.co. It's Build Your Life Resume. If you do not know Jesse Itsler, by the way, everybody needs to stop, write down his name when this is over. I mean, I'll even go so far as saying, like, pause this interview right now and make a note that you're going to go like look up Jesse Itsler when this is over. Because he's probably been one of the most influential people in my life at steering me in a direction of just adventure and fun and being. I mean, he's one of the best people I know. Some of my best friends as an adult, like, you have your college best friends, you have some of your grade school best friends, you have your, like, say I got my entrepreneur best friends, but then like all my friends that are doing Spartan races, like one of my buddies, Rick Steele, did 7 marathons in 7 continents. Colin O'Brady, I think he's broken like 5 world records. And the latest couple is, trekked across Antarctica, first person solo. He's been on the podcast, the Wake Up Minute podcast. I got to have him on again. He and a crew just like rowboated across the most dangerous parts of the seas. These are all amazing people. The guys who are founders of Health Warrior, friends Mark Rampolo over Power Plant Ventures, who are helping so many companies disrupt the food system with plant-based focused foods. I mean, I can go on and on and on. You got to check this guy out. He's one of the coolest guys out there. And to mention, he married Sarah Blakely, who's another amazing entrepreneur, founder of Spanx. I think of her a lot actually, because Wake Up Foods was to scratch your own itch. Like, if you're ever thinking about a company to build, just by the way, total side note for everybody listening, like everyone says, oh man, I had this idea of X and it was to solve their own itch. Sarah Blakely created Spanx out of solving your own itch. And most importantly, I think both of them would appreciate just me mentioning, like, they're both great parents. They have 4 kids, 4 beautiful kids, and a great role model family, So anyhow, so that's how I met Chef Eric, to go full circle. And Chef Eric married Molly. Molly's an amazing woman. They have 2 beautiful kids,
So you and Chef Eric get together and
so I'll tell you guys a funny story. You want to hear a funny story? So I was going a different route with the formulation, and Jesse introduced me to Chef Eric. I got on the phone with him and he said a couple things to me that I was left sitting there, and I was like, all right, can I come to your house? Like, I think it was like Sunday. It might've been Sunday. No, it was Saturday afternoon. And I was like, all right, what's Monday, Tuesday look like in your house? And he's like, let me check with Molly. I'll see it. So I flew out early Monday morning. We spent 2.5 days together talking. He was cooking, making waffles, and we just banged it out, man.
What did he shift in you? It sounded like he said something that shifted the direction that you were going in.
I think I was unaware of how powerful the plant movement really was. And I also was a little unaware of some of the underlying whys, right? Like I brought up the food, the agricultural, the planet, there's so many there's so many layers of values, how animals are treated. And then health. I mean, like, there's so many of those things. And then so you have somebody with a unique ability like Chef Eric, who can create like the most amazing waffle that is super, super, super clean, has 6 to 9 ingredients. When if you go look and has a good source of protein, 10 grams of protein, 16 net carbs, good quality carbs, right? And then 5 grams of fiber. And then you go look at, I'll tell you a funny story. I called up, so I have a couple buddies that train pro athletes, and I called them up and I said, let me ask a question. Like, do you have your athletes, like, do they train on super high protein, low carbs? And they're like, no. Okay. So what does that tell you, Jeremy? We need carbohydrates to have energy. And there's actually studies, and this is a little over my skis, but studies that show that, the best ways to lose weight is like a slower carb diet with good quality carbs that digest over longer periods of time, that don't suck up your energy. And so I called a nutritional expert here locally who consults with families. And I said, would you ever put a kid on a super high protein, low carb diet? And I think there's like one or two exceptions possibly, which is like epilepsy. And there's maybe one other thing, but the answer was no. So I was like, okay, it started validating all the ticks on my box. Right. And then I started testing with it myself and just noticed my clarity in my mind, my energy, my patience in my kitchen. It just was all better. And I'm not judging. By the way, I'm not judging. Like, everyone's got to do you, it's all good, I guess. But there's certain things that started shifting, and I got introduced to people like, you got to, check out the Rich Roll podcast. You check out what they did with the Game Changers movie. Absolutely incredible. And then what Rip Esselstyn's doing, Jesse Itsler, all these people, they all have, these are all people you should know,
And why'd you go with ready-made? Because,
the average person spends less than 4 minutes. The average person spends less than 4 minutes a day on breakfast.
Something you pull out and microwave.
Pull out 60 seconds in a toaster. Some people put it in the microwave. Some people eat it cold, frozen. Some of my kids. I love taking these actually because I do like plant-based smoothies. And I'll create a smoothie, put a little protein mix in there, put a waffle in there, add all my different, maybe a little cinnamon, a little bit of honey, organic honey, and a few other things, man. If you want to throw some greens in there, you could do that. I mean, you can do whatever you want, and bam, if you want a little more texture to your smoothie, you could do that with a wake up waffle,
What's, you mentioned Dr. Zach Bush, Rich Roll, Jesse Itzler, any other thought leaders that you look at in this space that people should, that you actually use to do research? You mentioned a couple, the movies. What else? What are the resources?
Well, yeah, great question. Because I know we were going to do, there should be a podcast up on our Wake Up Minute coming out with like the top 10 podcasts that I listen to. I love, from an expert's perspective, you could find almost every single health expert that you'd ever want to listen to get advice from between Rich Roll and like Rip Esselstyn's podcast. I've listened to way more Rich's, by the way, just for full disclosure on that. So I can speak to that. It is an avalanche of learning. And there's, I think for people, if you're confused, first of all, I think, I'm not a big proponent of fighting the diet wars. Like I think most people want simplicity, Jeremy. They just don't want to be confused, and they don't want to fail. Right. And so one of the things, I'll take it all the way back to Wake Up Foods, is like, one of the things is that this is a simple ingredients filled with super high nutritional value. So I was like, man, this fits all the tenets that we're trying to accomplish. It's good for everybody. So, I mean, I guess let's see here. I mean, I think those are just good starting points. Let's sit in there. I'll create a list for you later. Yeah. I know I'm forgetting people, so I apologize.
So I want to just first say, it's always fascinating to get inside your mind because of, if people don't know you, they should follow you and what you're doing. And, you wrote a book, Time Collapsing, one of my favorite books of all time. And you have a lot of amazing resources. And I think, the interviews, I'm looking forward to listening to a lot of them because you bring out aspects in people and different questions and different viewpoints in people. So check out, obviously, the Wake Up Minute, but wakeupfoods.com. And any final words? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, actually, let me just go back to like when you're asking me, like, who do I go to? Like, I think it's fascinating to listen to people who are doing really cool things. Like whether it's physical fitness, whether it's entrepreneurship, what they're actually doing. Like, so when you're asking me, like, who do I listen to? I'll listen to like 30 different podcasts, and I'm seeking like, okay, what's that person doing that's inspiring and cool? And then I like backtracking from there because every good interview has probably resources mentioned, right? That's a little more like, so Ben Greenfield's another one, Ben goes a little more scientific than I can sustain on some of his podcasts, but he's a plethora of, he's got so much information that's there, right? So, I mean, I think that's where I just want to clarify that. And I also want to challenge everybody, like, instead of just listening to podcasts, go do these events, like go to 29029, go to 29029. There's more amazing people that you don't know yet that are never going to be on a podcast, that are out there just like me and you trying to do our best. And I think that's super, super important,
So everyone check out wakeupfoods.com and try all the flavors.
Are you trying to wrap this? I think Jeremy's trying to wrap me up, everybody. Yeah, he's like, hey, do you got a time? I'm like, no, we don't have a time thing. Here's what I would say. Okay, am I wrapping this up? I'll wrap this up this way. When I left college, my goal was to be a motivational speaker. Like, I really thought I was going to be the next Tony Robbins. Like, I was like, oh, I'm going to go. And then I studied under Jack Canfield, who's the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And then I wrote a couple books and, never found, a couple of my businesses did really well, but like never found the book thing, motivational speaker thing. I noticed my values shifted to where, with 7 kids, I want to be home. I don't want to be traveling, speaking. I didn't make that a priority, right? And so the food business, or the Wake Up Foods, my goal, personal goal, is if we can inspire people to be their best selves, and whatever that might be, that's a pretty big win, right? There's other wins on top of it, probably a different podcast. But I would just say to everybody is like, hey, look at, if not now, when are you going to do it? And it could be anything. You don't have to go buy our product. Like, you can go but everyone's got a thing that scares them, that if they did it, it would make them it would open up a part of you that would just open up doorways that you just aren't experiencing now, because you aren't doing it yet, or you're ready for another level of it. So I would push people to say, whatever you think, whatever scares you a bit, go do it. Whatever you feel uncertain about, keep pressing forward, because the distinctions are not in knowing. The distinction is in the discovery of finding out and knowing, meaning you got to push through a lot of uncertainty. And this could be like 2 a.m. side of a mountain. I met Colin O'Brady at, I think it was 1:30 in the morning at the top of a mountain in Connecticut at Jesse's event. And I was in my head sitting there going like, man, I don't know. I think I'm ready to turn in, go back to my tent. And small discussion me and Colin had, like, Colin said to me, he's like, well, I think you're going to feel a lot better if you get one more in for tomorrow. And he was right. So, but we're kind of bound now by that one event. And he was there when I kind of needed somebody, but I would have never been there. Like, you just can't get that relationship virtually. And I don't know, got to step into that uncertainty. Life is found in this place where we just go and do things, and not living like TikTok, like not living the traditional life. And my wife and I talk about this all the time. Like, with 7 kids, structure makes life easier, right? And we're pretty unstructured, kind of easy. We are a little bit more lax than probably most people, but we're still structured. Kids go to the normal school. We have them in sports, but we do wake up a lot and we're like, hey, how do we make life more of an adventure for ourselves? And I think it's one of our top priorities right now. Like, how do we get out of this TikTok 9 to 5, even though our life isn't 9 to 5, but like, we're just doing what every other traditional family does. And I'd like to challenge people that, you can look on Facebook and Instagram and look at other people doing cool things, or you can start planning to go do amazing things. I hope inside your bag, or inside your luggage, or inside your cooler is a thing of Wake Up Waffles or any of our other products. And we help be a little bit of a guide during that phase, So that's how I'll wrap it up. That's a good wrap up.
Thanks, Ed. Always a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
All right, brother. You're the best.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.